One of the first stories we know in human history, recorded in the Torah, was the story of Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel, two brothers, each one decided to bring a gift to sacrifice to God. Cain, who worked the land, brought his produce, and Abel, who was a shepherd, brought sheep. But Rashi explains that Cain brought the most inferior produce. He went into his field and found produce he felt he could live without, and he put that on the altar to God. Abel found the best sheep, complete sheep, beautiful sheep, and he put that on the altar to God. We know the rest of the story. A fire descended from heaven, consumed Abel's sacrifice, and Cain's sacrifice remained on the altar. Cain was furious. He was devastated. He was let down to the extent we know the rest of the story. The first murder was recorded in Torah and history. Cain killed his brother Abel and spent the rest of his life trying to repent this grave sin. And that's the end of the story the way it's recorded in Torah. But if you study the holy book of the Shalah, he says that story didn't end there. The story actually happened again when Cain and Abel reappeared on the scene, reincarnated in new bodies. And they came back, and each one again pushed his agenda and his perspective on how to serve God. Shalah explains that Cain was reincarnated as Korach, and Abel was reincarnated as Moses, discussed in this week's Torah portion. The story of Korach and Moses is about a year and a half after the Jewish people leave Egypt. Moses is the king, Moses is the leader. Korach calls people together and says, what's going on? Moses took the mantle of leadership of the Jewish people, and all the upper positions, all the cabinet members, so to speak, are all Moses. It's a family business. Aaron's the high priest and so on. What's going on? And he comes to Moses. He says, Kol ha'eda kulam kedoshim, we're all holy. Why are you standing above all the rest of the people? We're all the same. We're all children of Isaac, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. Why are you more superior than anybody else? And Moses fell on his face, and he sees again the Jewish people are questioning God. There was no question that Moses was just, transmitting God's words to the Jewish people, but over and over and over, they keep on failing. And Moses says, very interesting answer, he says, Boker, wait until the morning. In the morning you'll see who God chose. And the obvious question is, what was Korach thinking? Why was he challenging Moses? He saw Moses giving the Torah and leaving Egypt, the 10 plagues, the splitting of the sea. What was Moses challenging? Why was Korach challenging Moses? And what was Moses' interesting answer? Wait until the morning. And here, this was what Korach's idea was. Korach said, listen, there's an idea in Judaism that although it's important to be inspired, but one thing is for sure, the main thing in Judaism is, or the primary focus is the deed. If you have a choice to either be inspired or put on tefillin, you can't say, I'm going to miss tefillin today until I'm inspired. The main thing is the deed. Even if you're uninspired, you do the deed. You can't say, I'll wait to light Shabbat candles until I'm inspired, or I'll spend time being inspired. The main thing is the deed. So Korach said, wait a second. If with that premise, with that idea, if the main thing in Judaism is the deed, why is Aaron more superior than anybody else? Moses and Aaron are special in terms of their emotional quality. They're connected to God, not just with the deed, but they're connected to God emotionally. They're more inspired, they're more knowledgeable. That makes them, that gives them the upper hand, so to speak. But if that's not what's important in Judaism, is the main thing in Judaism is the deed. We're all holy. Korach tells Moses, is your etrog more yellow than my etrog? Does your wife's Shabbat candles shine brighter than my wife's Shabbat candles? Why should you be in charge? Why should we be the followers and you the leader? We're all the same when it comes to the deed. The most simple Jew does the same deed as Moses and Aaron does. So what's going on? And Moses responded, Boker, wait until the morning. And in the morning I'll show you, we'll see who God chose. And Moses was telling, with the word morning, Moses was transmitting a very important point. He says, you're right, the deed is the main thing. But Boker, don't lose sight of morning. Morning means bright, lichtigkeit, beauty, inspiration. Moses says, you're right, the main thing is a maiso ikir, is the deed. But if the deed could carry with it the inspiration, it's very important. Moses explained that a mitzvah is like a diamond, like a jewel. You take it from the ground and it's covered with sand and dust and mud. The jewel is still precious gem. But until you take off that mud, it's not a functioning jewel, it's not shining. It's a jewel, but it's not functioning, it's not a shining jewel. A mitzvah is the same way if you do a dry mitzvah. You do put on tefillin, you light Shabbat candles, but you're uninspired, you're doing it just because you got to do it. It's a mitzvah. You're connected to God, it's very important. But the full effect of a mitzvah is not being felt because a mitzvah is supposed to shine. Shine within our personality, shine in our environment, transform who we are, transform our perspective. And if we don't feel for the mitzvah, we're not experiencing the full glory, the full beauty of a mitzvah. And Moses says, why settle for second best? Do a mitzvah all the way. Make sure it's a shining diamond, not just a diamond, it's there somewhere behind the sand, behind this cover. And Moses says, Boker, don't lose sight of the morning. There is something very important about the Moses and Aaron who give inspiration, because a mitzvah has to have that inspiration. Mitzvah does have to have that feeling. And my dear friend, Moses wasn't only responding to Korach. Moses was responding to Korach the way he was, previously, in a previous life when Korach was Cain. Cain felt the same way. Cain said, why should I be like my brother Abel and look for the best sheep? The main thing is the deed. I bring a sacrifice, no matter what sacrifice. It's a simple sacrifice, the most inferior of my fruit. The main thing is the deed. The action was done. I brought a sacrifice to God. He looked at it even wasting time. I'm not going to waste time beautifying a mitzvah. Inspiration is not what it's about. It's about doing the deed. And he had a point. But Abel finally had a chance to respond. Moses explained, Korach, you're right, the deed's the main thing, but you can't lose sight of the importance and the beauty of the inspiration, because a mitzvah has a tremendous potential. And if you can, feel the full, power of a mitzvah. Be inspired. Let it shine. Let it brighten our whole life, and our whole perspective, and our whole world. And my dear friends, this is the message on this story Moses was teaching. So we gotta feel for what we're doing. We gotta study and appreciate. I want to finish off with this last thought. I meet many people who tell me that what was that point that in a way turned them off from traditional Judaism was Hebrew school. 40, 50 years ago, 30, 40, 50 years ago, they spent time in Hebrew school, but it wasn't given to them in an inspirational way. They didn't feel for what they're doing. They didn't care for what they're doing. It was dry. That's the message Moses was telling Korach. You're right, the deed is beautiful. It's connecting to God. It's very important. But we can't lose sight of Boker. Can't lose sight of the morning. A mitzvah has so much potential. It's so beautiful. It's so bright. Let's let a mitzvah shine. Let's love it. Let's learn about it. Let's understand what we're doing. Let a mitzvah shine and brighten up. Feel the full potential of a mitzvah. Let it brighten our personality, brighten our lives, and brighten this world.